And we're live. Content provided the event is for general information only, not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA and SIPC. And investment advice is offered through Gimbal Financial, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. Happy Friday!
It's great to see you, Amanda.
Amanda, what was your best summertime job?
Oh, I worked at a creamery one summer, and so I got a lot of ice cream, which was nice.
That sounds like a good summertime job. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Pretty great.
How about you, Keith?
I had those old school summer jobs, and mine always
like a paper route.
No, like physical labor kind of thing. So I did those, and my most memorable one probably explains why I've learned to adapt to risk. But I did siding installation, and I quit one day because the people in the backyard across the way were shooting at one another with live ammunition, and I'm like, I'm gone.
Now that was probably aluminum siding. Would that be right?
It would have been. Yeah. And there's a shortage of that. And I could never say it. Do you know that word, Amanda?
I can't say I do.
And Alcoa calls it aluminum.
Oh, that I do know.
Like with shears and sharp edges
and
everything.
We had cut up hands and the whole deal. Yeah.
Man.
How about you, Doug, while we're on the topic?
I had a lot of great summertime jobs. I always loved working in the summertime for some reason. I think I loved making money and connecting with people. And so a lot of different jobs, but I would say my favorite was I had a little lawn business, and I had that in my teens, and just really enjoyed being out there without a shirt on and mowing the lawns of different people in our neighborhood and controlling my schedule. It was great.
I was going to ask if you were a financial advisor from the age of 10, but after your shirt was off and you're mowing lawns, I figured it out.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. But no, I was just curious because I see kids out and about these days, and my son's he's an umpire and a lifeguard, and I've just really been enjoying watching him work. But one of the data points I saw that was pretty interesting is some national business survey said that 42% of those in the survey said they can't hire enough people. It's pretty interesting. And so I think for that job market, that summertime job market, man, what a great opportunity to let your light shine, make some money, and connect with some people, meet some new faces in your community, and you might even build a career off it. I was talking with a guy at Crew Car Wash up the road. That's exactly what he did. Is he saw they had a help wanted sign, and he's been there for a few years, and so it could turn into a good future for somebody out there.
I don't know if this. I have to be very careful here, but. I don't know if this shows on the camera or not. Can you guys see this?
I can tell it resembles your son, Caleb, but.
That was him coming home from work last night.
Woo!
And he took his t-shirt off. He was dirty. So that's his summer job.
That's good.
The mullet gave it away for me, but everything else.
Yeah, that was
really unidentifiable.
That was impressive. That's hard work right there.
Well, families' net worths overall are going through the roof right now. Now that could be, your home has appreciated, your all of your Gimbal financial investments, of course.
Absolutely. But your accounts never go down with us. That's a joke.
That's a joke. But family net worth is up big right now.
Yeah.
And this spending that's happening, we're hopeful that will increase GDP. And this could be the summertime job crowd who's helping America get back on track. And so I'm cheering you on, summertime job people. If you're mowing lawns, if you're cutting aluminium, or if you're working at the creamery selling ice cream, whatever you're doing, I hope this summer is really profitable for you.
And I would add, I've voiced my opinion about this culture we're in now looks a lot like the 1970s again. And that's when I was looking for summer jobs. And one of the things unique is there were not summer jobs to be had back in the 70s. It's kind of hard to explain that to folks today, but there just weren't jobs available. So you kind of had to get out early to find the job, or you went the summer without working. So it's pretty exciting that there's 42% of the people are trying to find workers. That's really cool.
And there's probably a good portion of the population who wants to help you.
Oh yeah.
Who wants to be a cheerleader for you and say, hey, yeah, try this company, or I know this person here, or I know this person there. And so, yeah, it's an exciting time.
One place I do know is hiring is Cups Coffee, if you like coffee.
Hey, there you
Don't
go.
endorse, but they are hiring.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, they're open back in Marion County. And so that's
only downtown location. So if you are a Butler student, IUPUI student, UIndy student, hit them up. Great people to work for.
Yeah.
Shall we dive into the COVID tracker before we dive into the markets?
Yeah, let's do. They kind of dance together today for me. The COVID tracker, healthcare, markets. I could go that route.
Keith, you on board?
I had in my notes here, I don't know if it'll be too bold for me to do this, but looking at that top left chart there, I'm inclined to say COVID is dead. I don't know, like that's yesterday's news, but that's kind of what, so like whether we keep hitting on this going forward or not, we can gauge. But go ahead, Amanda, tell us what you that chart up there.
We haven't hit it in a while. This will probably be one of the last times we hit it, but
yeah,
because this is obviously going down. This chart that we've been tracking for over a year now, probably. This little factoid in the upper right-hand corner pretty much says that natural immunity from prior infection is as effective as the vaccine, according to research and the data. So with the amount of people being vaccinated, or the amount of people that have already gotten it, like Keith said, pretty much looks like COVID is dead. This one really stuck out to me now that it's summertime and kids aren't even in school. But this chart down here is the student infection rate versus percent of students in person. And this blue line is less than 30% in-person density, which saw a huge spike back in January in comparison to the 90+% in-person density. So being in person, you weren't getting infected at a higher rate, and you were learning and socializing with other kids. So that's the data.
On that top one that you showed, Amanda, what I think is really critical about that idea that you don't really need a vaccination if you've already had it there, that says this signals the natural immunity from prior infection is as effective as the vaccination. I don't know if anybody's talking about that, but that's 52,000 employees of the Cleveland Clinic. This is not Doug and me giving our opinion on what we think of it. This is one of the most premier healthcare
science.
Science. Yeah, this is one of the most premier healthcare institutions in the world that's their data. So take it for that kind of is why I said this could be the last COVID update that we do. That chart and that kind of said it's herd immunity is here. So.
I think the exciting thing about this chart though is we can be done. I'm cool with being done with it or revisiting if we have to, but really it continues from here because of all of the things, all of the lessons learned has just been amazing. And you think about just the rapid pace of genetic research and healthcare type drugs or implementations of products and equipment. It's just going to get better and better. And so it took a terrible situation and we're making it better and building upon it. So I think a lot of great opportunity ahead for scientists and for biotech companies, cloud computing to track all this stuff. It's just there's a huge opportunity ahead of us. And so we might be done with the chart, but the lead out for the investor is pretty good.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the opportunities there, the socialism of our government forced the capitalists to figure out how to navigate these rules that they were given, and I think they did a remarkable job. The capitalists did. I don't think the socialists did, but I was just giving an example here on my screen. This was last Friday night up in Shipshewana. In case you don't know, Shipshewana is more of a destination for people my age than Amanda's. And this is a country music concert, and there were no empty seats in the house. I took this picture just to give you a flavor for, there were no masks, no empty seats, and these were people that were higher risk people a year ago, but because there's no mask and a full house and no social distancing, my guess is they've all concluded that their vaccination and this thing is over as well. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be sitting in these seats. So anyway, that is just an example of why I think it's over. I don't see the concerned behavior in general. I see a few remnant people, and there's always going to be people that are going to stick to their guns on certain thoughts in life. But I think in general, that ship has sailed, and we're probably in the news cycle on the next big news thing would be my guess.
Well, and just as there's going to be some tailwinds for maybe healthcare or surgical companies, or definitely for people who've put off procedures, there's probably going to be some headwinds too. And in the stock market, there's always that. There's people who are companies that are having favor and companies that aren't. And Keith always tells me in regard to regulation and compliance that these things are just a barrier to entry. And I think because of COVID, there are going to be some industries that have increased barriers to entry. And one of them will be nursing homes. 1% of the U.S. population is a nursing home resident. And those folks, what they account for, 40% of the COVID deaths or intensive care patients. And so my guess is, just like there's opportunities for further research, there's probably opportunities for further regulation within that space. And so the person who's willing to go there, the person who's willing to be innovative and deal with some of those red tape things will probably do well.
Well, and regulation, again, I think that I don't know what I am politically, but I would definitely be more like libertarian in my beliefs of government involvement. But like with that example, Doug, the more regulation, it'll collide directly with capitalism, because the people who are putting their family members or getting their family members to move into assisted living or nursing homes aren't wanting to pay more money for the regulations. And so there'll be that conflict. How do we, if we can't afford this anymore, how are we going to take care of grandma or grandpa or great grandma and great grandpa? And so those kind of things, that's where the media jumps in, because they think there's an easy answer to these things, and there's just not. It's not an easy answer. The more regulations, the more the cost goes up. All those things are passed on to the consumer.
From what I read and listen to, as we push towards regulation and increase innovation in healthcare, it's really an aim for 2030. I mean, you're going to have a big voter shift in ages. Like my kids will be voting, and it will be just more and more interesting as, it's 8.5 years away. And I think the insurance companies, healthcare companies, they'll be one to watch for the next several years.
You know who regulates you now?
Several groups, but mainly myself or my wife.
Well, in our industry, it's not the people at LPL, it's their computers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so that whole process, because those computers don't care about you and me and Amanda, and to communicate with the people at LPL about those computers, they don't a lot of times even understand what the regulations are about. They're just rule keepers who are putting those things in place. And so
the computer keeps score. I mean, it's a way to quantify.
It builds ranges of things. So if something doesn't seem right, it'll like we get just, if something doesn't seem right, we get a form letter that a human didn't really even send. It just gets sent to us. And then you have to take your time and explain to the human. So those are the kind of regulations that we experience. My guess is that's what you guys are going to experience going forward, because that cost pressure of regulations is going to be passed on to the consumer. The way it's passed on not only is higher cost, but it's your time. If the computer sends something to you that doesn't seem right, even though it is, it doesn't take LPL's time to deal with it. It takes yours and my time, which lowers our profit margin. So in case you're one of our regulators, you never understood that. That's why we smile so big when we talk about it, because we know that it lowers our profit margins, and anything you guys can do to help streamline that for us, we're big cheerleaders
we really
of that.
Appreciate that. Healthcare, cloud computing, man, there's a lot of good stuff coming down the road.
How about this? 3 for 1. Did you see that?
3 for 1.
Geometric growth. 2015. The proud socialist communist of China decided kids were a good thing. Did you know?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I saw that.
That was 2015. Yeah. They doubled it.
Yeah.
They went from 1 kid to 2. And now China has decided that we can have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And what I did a little research on that. And what I found is the birth rate in China per 1,000 people is the same as the US. And so the Chinese have decided that they have a demographic problem and they need to have more kids. They thought they needed less when they put the 1 kid per family thing in place, and that all of a sudden sent their population starting to tail off. But what the U.S. did, and this, they didn't do it with a rule like that. They just did it with propaganda over the years. The U.S. It's the Department of Agriculture that does this. Every once in a while, the U.S. Department of Agriculture will send out a update on how much it costs to raise a kid from birth to age 18. And then that gets into the psyche of people and they believe it. And I never did believe it, because when we started reproducing, it was over $200,000 to raise a kid. And last they did it, I found, was 2015, is $233,000. So that gets into the psyche of the citizens of the U.S. And what our government did is said, here's how much it costs to raise a kid. But I think you and I would both echo, what are the benefits of having kids? And I don't think there would be much purpose for me to be energized if I didn't think I had an influence in the next generation through my own family. So I just thought that was really interesting what China has done. And they're at the same base level of reproduction as the U.S., and the U.S. hasn't figured out that they have a problem, evidently.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah, and so what I think that is it's optimism is what it is. I don't know how the U.S. is going to deal with it, but what the Chinese are doing is, if they're trying to encourage more kids, what it'll do, I think, is increase global demand. So if you're thinking lumber prices may be rough now, if this whole process continues, one of the articles I read said the Chinese are going to add 1/3 of the size of their dwelling in the months ahead as this comes to be reality.
Go China! Nice job.
Can I tell you? We were just discussing somebody that bought like a $1 million house. What do you think the average dwelling size in China is right now?
I'm going to guess it's under 3,500 square feet.
From the best I could tell, a family of 3 or 4, if they've had the second child, they're living in about 970 square feet in China.
That's some bunk beds.
Is that this space right here, you think?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a whole different mindset. And when the U.S. population started declining, probably in the 60s, I think, is when the population isn't declining, the growth rate of the population started declining in the 60s or 70s. We had the inverse happen, as the house sizes grew 50%. When the number of kids dropped by probably 50%, the house sizes grew by 50%. So it's very interesting psychology there.
Some things you can look to the past and create some optimism for the future. And I think about that, and I think, hey, my kids might be doing business. They might live over there. I mean, things change. And I like how, I think it's George Bush, if we've talked about this, when he was president, he said that, his dad was a pilot and the leader of Japan's father was part of World War II as well. And then here you have George Bush and whoever the other guy, the prime minister of Japan, were friends. And so I just think that optimism and friendship has no boundaries.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Who knows what influence our kids will have on the world as we know. We will never know like what their influence is. But that was really a big factor for me desiring to have kids, is to influence the world in a positive way. And I know I've talked to young people that don't want to have kids because they're discouraged about the world.
Right.
And any of them that I talk to, I tell them, if you're discouraged, the reason to have kids is that you have the ability to change the world through your bloodline and the way you train up children. So it's a big deal. Very optimistic. You can take it either way, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I hear that feedback from time to time as well. Just, boy, I can't imagine raising kids in this environment. And the kids, they do fine. They adapt. They adapt better than we do, and they're creating better things and moving forward. They have nothing but optimism. They've got their whole future in front of them.
I was going to say, I suppose if anybody was born in the 1940s, when World War II was going on, they should be glad their parents didn't listen. I'm sure that logic was going on because those people had to think the world was coming to an end, right? So if you're born in the 1940s, you owe your parents a big thumbs up because they bought into a different rule set that don't bring them into this world. What about the markets? Before I jump into a screen, a friend gave me a old article about a guy named Ted Aronson. And at the end of December last year, Ted Aronson closed out his fund. He sent back $10 billion to the investors, and he basically had thrown in the towel. And he was a money manager that specialized in, for 37 years, in what they call value investing. And value investing, if you're at a retail store, you would buy plaid pants when nobody's buying plaid, and then hold on to them until they're buying them. This is a shout out to my kids because I bought a pair of plaid shorts and I was wearing them yesterday. And hey, I'll hang on to them until they're back in style. But that's what value investors do. And so he pulled the plug on this thing to end his 37-year career. And guess what? Took off in December of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The value style investing started taking off probably about the time he pulled the plug. And I only point this out. I'm sure 37 years he had a full career, but what I'm pointing out is the psychology of investing probably is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life with regards to trying to help people, help them think through things. It's just a real hard thing to walk through because all the influences in life will tell you to do the opposite thing of what you might ought to do.
Well, and then you have the influences that say this person's doing better over there. You see some of these meme stocks that are out there and you wonder, what is going on? Why does Wall Street do what it does? Should I just stop? And it is tough. Or do I just close my eyes and stay invested and then 20 years from now, look and see what the balance is? Yeah. The psychology for the investor, it's a tough place.
I'm of the opinion that from the 1980s until now, it was a pretty easy way to be an investor. I really think this market's going to look like the 1970s, and it was a hard time to invest. And so I think the challenges in investing are going to be something unusual that probably a lot of investors who started investing in the 80s and 90s haven't seen. So just an opinion. There's no guarantees of that opinion, but when you see that somebody with 37 years experience threw in the towel, and then I was having dinner with some friends and their 20-something-year-old took 5,000 and converted it to 80,000 in one of those meme stocks. Those sort of things don't last for long. I remember seeing that in the late or in the early 1990s. I remember seeing it again in the late 1990s. The value stock guys we had a guy come into our office to give us a sales pitch on his management style, and those value guys were struggling the second half of the 1990s. And felt like he wanted to get in a fetal position under our table. So I can appreciate this Ted Aronson guy and how frustrating that would be.
You know, I think about just the tech stocks here recently, you know, since February, they just haven't looked that good. And several of the biggest leaders have been struggling. And that's just the price has to come to the earnings. I mean, these are businesses. Yeah. So we could say, hey, this technology is the future. It's the way to go. And everybody believe that. But there's still businesses, and there's optimism, there's pessimism, there's fear and greed in the share of the price. And so sometimes you might even have a great piece of technology or a great company, but the stock might not be good, or the industry group might not be good. And this week's been a pretty exciting week for me. I've probably for you too. I've really enjoyed keeping track and tabs on the market, and the health of the market has looked better this week.
It's starting to shape up a bit. I threw a research article from Ned Davis on your desk over there this morning, and one of the groups they were pointing out, just kind of what you were saying, was the home builders. And the home builders have doubled the performance of the S&P 500 over the last 18 months. But what they were showing was how, although the home builders are really productive right now, that acceleration of their stock price of twice the S&P isn't sustainable. But I also when I was driving back from Shipshewana last weekend, I pointed out to Connie that in some suburb of Fort Wayne, they were like in the middle of nowhere. They were building a neighborhood, and there were probably 10 to 15 houses being constructed, which reminded me a lot of the 2006 marketplace. But I don't think we're in the same thing. Brian Westbury pointed out that the U.S. He's an economist with First Trust. He pointed out that the U.S. in a normal year needs 1.5 million houses to be constructed, either from population increases, destruction from fire, destruction from just dilapidation, and we've been building since 2008 1.1 million. So there is a short supply of houses. So I don't think we're in that situation, but the home builders are going gangbusters. But what the Ned Davis report said is they would underweight that sector. They wouldn't be buying into that because the secret is out on that. And so there's other sectors that probably make more sense at this point.
And so we like to look for those types of sectors for the future. Just having a small dose of a sector that could outperform can really carry the performance of your account and allow you to be a little more conservative and have more cash at times too.
Right. And that's what, we're watching for those things that are shifting over. Like Doug was mentioning earlier, I pulled up a stock to look and see how it was doing, but he was talking about how we're going from the COVID economy to the post-COVID economy. And one of the stocks that did really well during that time marketed themselves for doing your doctor's appointment, like this meeting right here today. And I hadn't looked at it in a while. When I pulled it up, it had dropped probably 50% because I'm guessing what people said is, if you guys could sit in here in our comfy chairs and have this conversation with us versus watching this, that's probably what you would prefer. Definitely, if you're going to the doctor and you need to have a visit with a cardiologist, whoever, you probably don't want to be doing all the technical stuff yourself. If you're going to the family doctor, maybe so, but all those things that ramped up the demand also gave people a test of whether they like those things as well.
Yeah, and a lot of technology still even has to catch up.
Right.
And so just because you can do it doesn't mean it's easy to do it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What else do we need to talk about today? We haven't shown you guys really much.
I don't think we looked at a single chart, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, I would just say there's a lot of opportunity out there, whether you're pessimistic or optimistic, whatever. The opportunity is out there in different industries. It's out there for different styles of work and revenue generation, and just there's a lot of reasons to wake up out of bed with a smile on your face. Have you seen this gnat flying around in here?
I can't see it.
There's this gnat like it's like the vice president debate.
Yeah. I thought you wouldn't notice that, Doug. He was bugging me.
I saw it go across the screen.
Yeah.
Well, have a great weekend. It's going to be a beautiful one.
Well, thanks, Amanda. And anything to add before we part ways, Doug?
No, check in with us. This month is a great time to check in with us if you have a question or concern. We start to hit vacation month in July, and so we'd love to see you before or after.
Exactly. And if you guys are going on vacation, have a great one. We'll see you soon, okay?